What's going on, YouTube fam, and welcome back to another video. And today we are going to be talking about the tipping culture in Mexico. Now, if you're from a country that tipping when you go to restaurants and bars is customary, then this won't be a new concept for you. But for some of you out there who are not really used to it, or maybe only have dealt with that if you visit other places like the US or any Western country that practices tipping, then you'll be a little familiar with it. But I'm going to break down exactly how it works here in Mexico, and for all you out there wondering if you're whenever you decide to come here, or if you're just getting here, or if you just got here, or the mix of those, how that works. So when you're going to restaurants and bars, what the culture is, what is, I don't want to say expected, but what may be customary. So let's get into it. Now, tipping, as you know, is gratuity. It's not an obligatory service. It's like, okay, hey, that was a good meal, that was good service, that was a good bartender, you made a good drink, whatever it may be, you're giving that extra because you enjoy the service. And it was never obligatory, And as a person who worked in hospitality for a very long time, I was a cook, I washed the dishes, I was a host, I was a waiter, I was a bartender. So I know how it is to be in that industry and to make money off of tips. I worked in banquets and all kinds of different events where that was a big part. Now, I've had jobs where I get good salary and would also get good tips, but I have that, that perspective on it, just having come from that, and I understand how it is to be on the other side. Now, basically here in Mexico, tipping is usually done in like restaurants or bars. Now, coffee shops and stuff, you can leave like a little bit of change, tips and stuff like that, but there's no kind of, I don't want to say pressure, there's no kind of influence for you to leave a tip, because you're getting a coffee or whatever, and you're on the move. But if you want to give a few change to, because they don't make so much money, give them a little change in their tip box, and that's a good gesture. Now, how it works is, and these are just some of the standard options. Now, let's talk about paying with your card. Now, when you go to a restaurant or a bar and you pay with your credit or debit card, at the end, when you're ready to pay the bill, you're going to see your final amount due, right? So they're going to bring the credit card machine over to make a payment, and then they'll ask you, would you like to leave a tip, right? Now, when that happens, you have choices to leave 10%, which is about the standard, the minimum standard, I want to say, 15%, 20%, and it can get even higher than that. Some machines have custom, percentages where you can put however much you want to leave. Now, and then you just choose it like that, and it'll all charge you at the same time. So what happens if, let's say your total bill was 500 pesos, you leave a 10% tip, that's going to be 50 pesos. So it's going to be 550 pesos, and you'll see that before your card is charged. All right. So you know how much you're paying out the gate. That's all good to go. Right. Now, if you're paying in cash, then you can kind of just do your own calculations, use your cell phone calculator and calculate what tip you want to give. So, if the service was good, I think 10% standard is acceptable. It's not looked down upon. Also, if the service was above average, 15%, a lot of the bartenders, the waiters will greatly appreciate that 15%. I'm not sure how common it is, but I know whenever I tip 15% or more, they're very appreciative, very thankful. So, if your services was really good like that, give them a little extra if you're in the mood for that. And 20%, they're really going to be like, appreciate you. And a good thing is too, is if you're going to be living here or staying here for a certain amount of time, and you're going to be going to this bar, this restaurant, ever so often, they're going to remember you, and that service is always going to be on point. You're going to have a little rapport with them, and you're going to get the best because they say, hey, this person appreciates the extra mile that I went, so they're going to recognize you and make sure they give you continuously good service. So that's how it works with bars and restaurants. Like I said, cafes, they have like little change jars. You could just put, a few coins in there, or like a little note in there, and that's cool too. And there's no pressure. They're not asking you, do you want to leave a tip at a cafe? All right. So that's usually reserved for bars and restaurants. All right. Now, we could, let's just address this. If the service is terrible, the waiter was just not good, didn't check on you, was a ghost, disappeared, was nowhere to be found when you needed something, don't feel obliged to leave a tip. Now, this just goes on morals. If you are a person who works for tips, you want to make sure you're doing a good enough job to where the tip is warranted. If you're just, I'm gonna do the bare minimum, and then, I'm gonna get mad when somebody doesn't give me a tip, even though I didn't deserve it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Kind of like when you work at a job and, you do the bare minimum just to keep your job, but not enough to get a raise, because you haven't really shown outstanding performance, So it's like that. So if the service is terrible, don't feel pressure to leave a tip. It is what it is. It's a learning experience. At the end of the day, it's these people's jobs, and this goes anywhere in the world, is these people's jobs to do the right way. So if they're rude to you, I'm not saying this is going to be commonplace, because it really isn't. The service is usually pretty good. People are very respectful. And, I can say it's decent. I've had outstanding service. I've had subpar service. It really just depends on where you go. But if it was just terrible, you didn't have a good experience, you don't have to leave a tip. There's no obligation. There's no, you're going to be banned or stopped at the door for not leaving a tip or anything like that, okay? So it's nothing like that. Now, let's get into tipping when it comes to taking Ubers and taxis. Now, taxis, especially if you're arriving to the airport in Mexico, most airports will have a system where you prepay. So in Mexico City Airport, they have that. Here in Guadalajara, they have that. And you can pay with your card or pay it with cash at the taxi stand, get the receipt, show it to the driver, good to go. So taxi drivers and you Uber drivers, while they'll accept tips, they usually don't expect tips. So don't feel pressure, because I know in the United States, especially in New York City where I was living, it's just expected from the taxi drivers there. And I can understand in New York, it's a high cost of everything to maintain their licenses and, gas and things like that. So I can understand that somewhat. But here, it's not expected. It's appreciated, but not expected. So if you want to tip your taxi driver, especially if they help you with your baggage, if you're flying in, just give them a little something. If you have some change, maybe throw them 20, 50 pesos. They're going to be happy that they're getting anything extra anyway. To them, it's a big deal. So that's what you could do if you want to. Also, about Ubers and DDs and these rideshare services, you have the option to tip on the application at the end of the ride. So after you give them the rating, how many stars you want to give them, it'll show like 10 pesos, 20 pesos, and then you can enter a custom amount as well. And like I said, you don't necessarily need to do that. I usually do that when they help me, like if I go to the grocery store, or I go somewhere where I have to bring something heavy and they take the time to help me take my stuff, lift my things. If I have cash on me, I'll give them some cash. If I don't, I'll make sure to take care of them and give them a nice tip when I rate the ride and, at the end of it, and I'll just add the extra tip. So that's how that goes here. So don't feel pressure. Don't feel like you have to be tipping large amounts or people are going to side eye you. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like that. But if you enjoy the service, if the service is good for you, it'll start like 10% for decent service, 15% for above average, 20% for excellent service, okay? That's just like the kind of a standard, There's no written rule, but, that's usually how it goes around these parts, all right? So that's usually how it is, and you can find that all around Mexico. Now, in some places, maybe that have a lot of tourists, they may be more expecting it in some industries, like if you go to Cancun, Playa del Carmen, places like that. But overall, that's how the tipping culture works, you know what I mean? And they'll ask you, like, would you like to leave a tip at the end if you pay with your card? So it's kind of like a nice gesture, a kind of nice reminder, like, hey, did you like the service? If so, want to leave something extra? So that's how it goes. So yes, that's basically the breakdown of tipping here in Mexico. You can do it with your card, you can do it with cash. Some places you may not be able to tip with your card. I've seen a couple places where they didn't have that function. So if you want to keep like a little bit of change on you at all time, just in case you want to tip somebody, that's a good idea as well. And if you're going to places where they can do the tip on the card machine, then you're good to go. In most places, they do. All right. So that was the basic breakdown of tipping in Mexico. I seen this topic talked about, and I've lived through it for 3 years living here and learned how the system works. So I wanted to share that with you all out there. So thank you for joining me in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. How was your experience with tipping where you're from? How was it? If you're in Mexico already, or if you've been to Mexico, how has your experience been? If you got any questions for me, I will definitely answer. So thank you all out there. More great things coming with this channel very soon. And yeah, thanks to all the subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that like button, subscribe, because we got a lot of good, I don't got a production team, but I got a lot of good information for you all on Mexico and Latin America, and you don't want to miss out, all right? So thank you all once again for tuning in. Y'all stay safe. Have a great evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you may be in the world, and I'll catch you on the next video.